Hello, I'm ANSHU-Sharma. I welcome you and send you my love. Today we are going to discuss ego recognition. How do we recognize when ego is working in us? Ego is the image we have of ourselves. It is the I we think we are. Part of ego lies in our conscious mind and part of ego lies in our unconscious mind. Ego is identification with form. Humans generally relate forms with material things, but forms can also be mental and emotional. There can be thought forms. Thought is an energy. When we emit a thought, merging with the elements in the universe, it forms a thought form. It takes a shape. Thought forms are energy formations in the mind. Similarly, when we emit an emotion, merging with the elements, the emotion also takes a form, which is called emotional thought form. Both thought and emotional thought forms then attach with the concept of I, and they form egoic consciousness. Humans identify with them. Beliefs are also thought forms. Thought forms and emotional thought forms are in energy form, and that is why we cannot see them. I am on its own is a formless consciousness. I am does attached to nothing, doesn't have a thought form. It is formless. It doesn't have a form. Now, what is consciousness? Consciousness is sum total of our awareness and our knowing. So when we say I am without adding anything in front, we are coming into the formless aspect of ourselves. So we are in essence formless, being at our soul or energy level. It is when the conscious formless beings, that is us, we get attached to a form. It may be a physical or a material thing, or it may be an emotion or a thought. We come into egoic consciousness. For example, when we attach our energy, we call I, which is formless, to a car. And then we call it my car. Or when we attach our energy, I, which is formless, to an emotion and say, I am angry, we are in egoic consciousness. It is then when we attach that formless I with something, spirit, which is pure energy, gets imprisoned in a matter. Ego separates, and in ego, people feel themselves as isolated beings, separate from anyone else. For example, when I say it is my car, it is my family, or it's my money, we are stating you are not part of my family or my money. A sense of separation has come in. Egoic mind has inbuilt mind structures. These structures are in energy form. Mind is also energy. Now, we can't see these structures, but we can visualize them like containers. Let's discuss a bit more for clarification. Let's discuss various mind patterns or structures. Egoic mind structures. They are inbuilt structures of an egoic mind. You cannot take them away. They are there in our mind. If you are identifying with these structures, you are in identification. Then how do we get out of this identification? Because they are inbuilt, we cannot escape them. The only way is to observe. Only through observation our awareness expands. And in expanded awareness, we recognize ego as being limited and separate from the whole. Let us see some examples of such structures which are inbuilt in our mind, and then we can make it clearer for us to understand. I, my, and mine are these mind structures in our mind. They are in energy forms like we have discussed, and that is why it makes them hard to realize and harder to see. We can never see them with our physical eyes, but we can see them through our third eye. Our third eye can visualize energy forms. So whenever we use these words like I, my, and mine along with any other words, we come into ego. And then it is ego which is operating in us. For example, when I say I am beautiful, I am fat, this is my car, this tea set is mine, we come into egoic mind and its extension. We have attached I, my, or mine with physical or non-physical objects. Non-physical objects such as beauty, fat, and the physical structures are like, for instance, car and tea set. Whatever is attached to I is egoic, illusionary, and fictitious. Because only in ignorance we hold on to things tightly and make them a part and parcel of our personality. We have to separate ourselves because we are essentially energetic. We are an energy, but we have attached ourselves to either physical objects or non-physical objects such as emotions and thoughts. Now, another mind structure which is inbuilt is making yourself right and others wrong. Is also inbuilt mind pattern. Instinctively, we feel we are right. This pattern is so ingrained in us that is hard to spot. We come into its influence and sometimes we make grave mistakes. In time, when we associate that I'm always right, we know and we prove ourselves wrong sometimes. And sometimes when we take support from a knowledge, that knowledge itself might be wrong. But we assert that we are right. But due to this inbuilt pattern in self-deception, knowledge of information we are getting can either be correct or incorrect. It is immaterial. But we take a stand that we are right. We get angry when someone opposes our point of view. So this has to be seen within us. After you have obtained the knowledge, then you begin to see what you are doing and what is happening within. Ego takes us into polarity. Even if we are right, there will always be people with opposing point of view. But ego doesn't want to know that. Another such pattern which is inbuilt is pattern of wanting. An egoic mind is never satisfied. It constantly puts us in the mode of wanting. It thinks, if I have this or if I have that, then only I can exist. Then only people will recognize who am I. This constant wanting includes material things, money, or power. Egoic mind thinks the more I have, then more I am. This mind pattern predisposes towards people predisposes people towards more wanting. Even if people have what they desire, this hidden energy pattern of I want remains, ready to trigger people in more wanting. This pattern of wanting is inbuilt. No amount of content can provide lasting fulfillment if this mental structure remains in place. Because we always feel I do not have enough and I want more. So we recognize that whenever we are saying, I want, I need, I must have, I need it more, I like this or I dislike this, this is not enough, I am incomplete, we fall under this pattern of wanting. Throughout our life, this pattern keeps pulling us out. If we do not recognize these thought forms within us, they remain unconscious. And unconsciously, we keep operating from egoic mind. It is then no content how much buying you do, it can never satisfy you. Because these egoic patterns are in place. If we leave one content, these structures will quickly find another content. When we catch ourselves saying, I, my, mine, I am right, I want, I need, I want to have this, I like this, I dislike this, this is not enough, I am incomplete, and like such phrases, then we weaken our egoic structures within. So we have to catch ourselves at the time we are either feeling or saying these things aloud. You can buy whatever you want, but recognize this egoic pattern within you, which makes you constant want things. So, in recognizing these structures remain, but now they lose their hold on you. Identification. Now, ego identification is just a mental construct. People believe it to be real as a physical entity. Ego is nothing but a pattern of thinking. In ego identification, people become fearful, they become protective, and they become hurt. When we identify with something, we make it same as us. We become like one. This is egoic identification. If something happens to the people or the things we have or we identify with, we feel as if we are getting hurt. We are unable to separate ourselves from our emotions or things or people with or roles we identify with. Identification narrows and limits our point of view. If my car gets a scratch, then I get a scratch. If my child gets hurt, then I get hurt. If that continues to happen, who is going to lift whom? If your family goes down, then you also go down with them. Let us see a few examples of these identifications. Knowledge is power. When you know it, then you are conscious in observing these patterns within. Identification with things. That is very obvious when we attach ourselves with the physical things which we can see, such as a car, house, clothes, belongings. Identification with the body happens when we identify with the gender, physical appearance of our body, like good looks, physical strength, problematic body, too thin, too fat, too short, too tall, or physical sickness or disability. Sometimes we identify with our mind. It happens when a thought form or an image, for instance, concept or idea of being good or bad, just or unjust, victim or perpetrator, fearful or brave, intelligent or fool, bright or slow, etc. we identify with. We say, this is just or this is unjust. Then we are identifying with the mind. This is good, this is bad. And in that mode of identification with the mind, what we consider good or bad, or like or dislike, we label people. Or we label ourselves. So not understanding various states of mind which come and go. If I say I am always unhappy, no, I am not always unhappy. Unhappiness is a state of mind. Sometimes I become unhappy and then I revert back to my peaceful state. Identification with memory. When we identify with old stories we keep hearing in our mind, past incidents, past school or our school friends, past illnesses, past happiness, etc., then we are identifying with memory. We become a victim when we remember an old story which happened in our childhood or other time. So now we are identifying ourselves as being a victim. An incident did happen once when somebody was either cruel to us or indifferent to us, and that time we did feel like a victim for a few moments, but it doesn't make us permanently a victim. So that is identification with memory. Identification with intellect. When we identify with our judgment, our solution, our opinion, viewpoints, our interpretation, a sense of being right. So we identify with our intellect when we say, I'm always right. It's not like that. Knowledge is unlimited. Sometimes we are right and sometimes we can be even wrong. While we can put forth our point of view, but identification with intellect, that I am of low intellect, or I'm very intelligent, or I always get it right, is egoic. Identification with emotions. When we label people as angry, sad, happy, joyful, irritated, depressed, or we say I am hurt, hatred, jealousy, so these are the times we are identifying with our emotions. We ignore the fact that emotions are also states of mind which on the mind screen come and go. I may be feeling down because of something today for a few moments or hours, but it doesn't make me permanently depressed. I may be getting angry on a few things, but it doesn't make me or people permanently angry. That is labeling people, or that is identifying with emotions. Collective identification. When we identify with race, family, history, country, religion, political party, social class, ideas, concepts, even like with the sporting teams. So when our team loses a match, we get hurt, because we have identified and sort of attached our I to our sporting team. Or something is happening in our country, then also we have like become one. We also get hurt. No, this is collective identification. Now that we have understood what ego identification is, let us see how we can recognize when ego works within. Recognizing how ego works in ourselves. Ego is working within us all the time. It thinks, it speaks and acts through us. It is a part of our mental structure, like we have just seen. It is ego that makes us unconscious. As long as we live, it is impossible to get out of ego. But what we can do is to recognize its working within. The only way to spot ego's working is to become aware of it. Like for instance, when our team we support loses a match and we feel hurt, that is the time to spot that we are coming into collective identification and separate ourselves. It requires our presence at that time when it is happening. When these patterns emerge in various circumstances, we spot them in alertness. When we remain alert, these patterns become weaker. We further weaken them by not coming into their influence. Meaning we do not react. If something, maybe like for instance our mobile we are attached to and we drop our mobile and it gets broken, then we feel hurt. So that is time when we spot and separate ourselves, then we have not only weakened the egoic structure within, but we have also further protected ourselves from further emotions building up. Otherwise, it can take us more into feeling of sadness and sorrow and saying, God, I spent so much of money, or blaming someone who has done it. So something happened, it was just a material thing, and now what can I do about it? So it is in recognition ego disappears like a ghost and we become free. We become conscious. The power comes back into our hands, whereby we can create now our life consciously in our own unique and empowering way. We spot ourselves, the ego working in various situations, and we keep separating ourselves. Now we can create the life we want. Otherwise, run by ego, we constantly feel emotions and we constantly feel attached to things, to people, to our ideas, and to our roles. So we free ourselves from the emotions we feel and recognize the egos working within. The process of recognizing ego through gradual arising of consciousness in us is called awakening. Other words describing this process is enlightenment or liberation. So the more we recognize egos working within and free ourselves, the more freedom we get, more liberated we feel, more presence or rise of consciousness come in. This awakening is happening right now on our planet as we speak in huge, large numbers, never seen or heard before in the entire history of mankind. In short, ego is identification with form. It may be physical, mental or emotional. Let us explore ego a bit more and recognize the way it is working within. Living in the past, making stories. Ego likes to live in the past. It likes to continually make stories. What ego detests is the present moment. Whenever we find ourselves listening to the same old repetitive stories connected to our past in our head or somebody else's past or our collective past of our nation or our society or our religion, we can recognize it as ego. It keeps us entangled in either good or bad memories of the past. Good doesn't happen that much, bad happens more. Somehow we remember the bad stories more. We visit our past again and again, and if we continue to do like that, we lose power. And we have less power to create our present realities and move on. We remain stuck in the past. When we come out from the past and live in the present moment and even take an action now, then we are living in the present moment. And the minute we do that, ego disappears. Wants, needs, identification with things. Ego keeps us in a loop of wants and needs, which we discussed. They are mental structures. And it keeps making us run after material things and run after people and money. In egoic state of mind, we take some satisfaction from things we obtain, only to run after more. Unless you observe this pattern of wanting within you again and again. Like suppose, for instance, you want to buy a new furniture. When you don't have a furniture or a furniture is broken, in reality it is correct that you can go and buy the new furniture. But constantly in the mode of buying whether we need it or not is egoic. And without recognizing whether it is true want or it is coming from an ego. Most humans spend their lifetime chasing things, chasing people, chasing money. If we continue to chase money, when are we going to live happily in the things we really want to do. What is our passions? What our hobbies and interests? So we fail to recognize the workings of ego within them. If that happens, then we keep running after the things blindly. Identification is a sense of identity with someone or something. And egoic mind works through identification, as we have seen. Ego identification with things create attachments and obsessions with things. And this leads to unnecessary consumerism. Whether we need a thing, we just go and buy it. Or impulsive buying. Whenever we find ourselves preoccupied with things, people, money, or power unnecessarily, we can take a pause and investigate. Whenever we find ourselves excessively and repetitively talking about material things, such as car, clothes, shoes, house, furniture, children, money, we can stop ourselves and recognize it's the ego working within. And we reflect. On reflection, we discover that we have attached I, that I am which is formless, with these things. For instance, I and my car has become one. I or my, say, t-shirt has become one. If the t-shirt is broken, then I'm getting hurt, or mobile is broken, I'm getting hurt. So with practice, we try to detach and look at the workings of ego within. Initially, mere observation helps creating a space between us and the things. When we observe something, we have separated ourselves and we start looking at the things objectively. Our mind creates an image of that thing which we are thinking of when we are observing something, and that image we separate it from our total mind. Otherwise, we and the things become one. So we separate and learn to observe the things from a objective way, in an objective way. We create a space in between. The space created, because now there is a space created. When the space is created, something comes in. That something which comes in is your awareness. When the awareness comes in, it means now we can aware and look at a broader thing. This rising awareness is awakening, and this rising awareness weakens the egoic structure. Similarly, we can observe our emotions such as anger, defensiveness, hurts, humiliation, guilt, etc. So instead of thinking, oh, I'm feeling guilty, I'm angry, I'm defensive, I am not happy, we learn to observe our emotions from far. When we observe our emotions, a space gets created and our awareness increases. And we do not identify ourselves with that emotion. Any identification is due to the egoic structure of our mind. At first, we start observing our attachments and egoic identification with material things we start with. We gradually move on and start to become more aware of how we have attached our thoughts and feelings as well. Sometimes it's better to explore our emotions also, and then we trace back our identification. So it works both ways, especially sometimes we can look at the situations which generated the negative emotions in the first place. It presents us an opportunity to look within and investigate. That we are hurt, we look at the hurt and then we backtrace and see why we got hurt and why we have labeled ourselves, identifies that I am hurt all the time. Or life is not fair to me. That's what people say. I always get it wrong. We start seeing that our attachments and expectations lying underneath our emotions. Emotions carry a charge, and there is a danger to get swept away with them. This presents a danger of escalating both the emotions and ego identification. Now that I have decided that I am an angry person, or I have decided that he is an angry person, then we have sort of cemented our personality as angry or hurtful. And now we are going to attract more of the hurt or more of the angry situations to us. How wise is it? Not at all. With practice, we can ground ourselves and then we can observe them both, the situations or the emotions, by creating a wall of awareness in between. Meditation also helps because in meditation we are quiet and we can observe. Now comparison with others. It is actually egoic during the time we compare ourselves with others. We can start an honest investigation with ourselves in the following manner. In comparison, what we do, we think either bigger or smaller. Comparing ourselves with others leave us vulnerable on 3 counts. We either feel inferior, or we feel superior, or we get impressed with someone. Jealousy also may arise. So and so has got more than me when I compare myself with others. So it is time to reflect. Are we feeling a sense of superiority? In possession of certain things, we may feel superior. Or I have got a better house, I have got a better car, or I have got a better intellect, I know things more. Are we feeling a sense of importance at this time? So we wait, we take a pause and look within. Why am I feeling superior to others? And who is feeling superior? So when we start taking the pause, again, immediately you may not pick up that it's the ego which is doing it, but start taking these pauses. Are we feeling a sense of inferiority? Is not having certain things. Why it is making me feel inferior? Are we feeling a sense of being diminished in some ways? Why is it happening? And who is in this, within me which is feeling inferior? We start practicing like that. Are we feeling impressed? Are we feeling impressed by people who have got more than us? In terms of material things such as money, car, or a house, or it can be any other things. So when we take a pause and we look within and investigate that who is it within us getting impressed? Who is it within us getting feeling superior or inferior? We will eventually go down and find out the cause. I am telling you something. You are getting the education, but eventually you have to do the investigations within you in order to recognize the egoic patterns working within you. And that is self-effort. It takes time. But the result is awesome because you will start feeling freer. You will start feeling happy. That space which is causing hurt because you are attached to something, ego is working, will get free. New energies will come in. Weakening ego structures. Mere observation. With mere observation, ego stops its play. Because ego is also very intelligent, but it knows that it has been found out. Sometimes we cannot stop our habits at once. It is okay, as long as we continue our investigations and observations. And in time we will weaken egoic structures within and realize that things just are. People just are. I may have this weakness, but it does not make me feel inferior. I may have certain strengths or good points. Good to recognize that. But it doesn't make me superior to anyone. Everyone is on their journey. And there is no need for any comparison. Because if I'm deficient in something and life makes me feel that I have to develop that portion of myself, then of course I have the taking self-responsibility, I can develop that. But why do I have to feel inferior? No. We weaken egoic mental structures whenever we question ourselves like this. As our awareness increases, ego diminishes. Gradual analysis results in our being aware that things just are. There is no need to attach a label of superiority or inferiority on things or people. We realize there is potential in all. Everyone is unique, having their own talents and specialities. With self-effort and discipline, like we just discussed, we can also cultivate and acquire whatever is lacking within us. If the need is there, the real need is there, not that egoic wanting. Slowly we drop comparisons and stop being impressed with people. Remembering, ego invests in a person and love invests in a relationship. With ego we get impressed. With love, bonding of love, we make strong bonds. When ego invests in a person, the fear comes in. Oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, he's so and so is so good. I'm not good enough. So this has to stop. And then we cease to be impressed by a person. We start focusing on our real relationships and drop the person along with its image. That's all in this talk. Thanks for listening. We will continue exploring ego in our next talk. Till then, lots of love and light.